I was talking to a private coaching client last week, and she was triggered by a toxic display of masculinity. She was on a girls' trip. They were out walking, and I don't know if they got catcalled or I think the guy was like driving by fast and revving his engine, and she was triggered. Lizard brain, fight or flight, panic attack, like complex PTSD trigger. And my clients are talking about we're seeing more of these, more uses of force, men driving more aggressively, more people fighting in public. We're just going on our social media and we're seeing all of this of ness. I've got lots of clients whose husbands are consuming more and more red pill content. And this is like, I'm almost going to do a training on this for my clients because it is becoming so popular. Anyways, it is bringing up a lot that we'd probably buried pretty deep. And that'll be its own podcast. What happened, like your husband's views changing recently, political division in marriages and what that all means. So this client had a trigger, as we all do, and we started to unpack it, and it went back to her childhood. So I'm having more and more clients have triggers from the past come up, especially around toxic masculinity, violence, sexual assault. And if we go back, we rewind to childhood. And if you are a superwoman, responsibility is probably one of your super traits. So you were praised for being the responsible one, the girl who didn't cause trouble, the girl who remembered everything, remembered everyone's birthday, who got straight A's, like you remembered your assignments. And it would actually like cause you panic to not do everything right. You picked up everyone else's slack. Okay. So you were taught from a very young age to be responsible. And then we fast forward and you became a woman who is still responsible. So you are making the meals while your partner is being the fun dad in the pool with the kids. You keep things running, but you don't feel met. You probably don't feel like having sex. And somewhere in between managing everyone else's needs and emotions, you start to get exhausted, you start to get resentful, pleasure disappears. And I want to get one thing straight here because as I've gotten clearer and bolder in my messaging, I'm getting a lot of pushback. I'm ruffling some feathers. Mostly white men are getting their panties in a twist. And actually, a lot of white women too, that just don't understand that by not understanding these things and not understanding their privilege, that we are a part of the problem. And it is exactly the thing getting in the way of what we want: connected, fulfilling relationships. So if you've been the one holding everything together, work, kids, emotion, the whole household, your whole business, we shouldn't be shocked if our desire flatlines or we're seeking that connection through sex because it's the only place we get it from our under-functioning partner. Okay, responsibility as a super trait, it makes you indispensable, but it rarely makes you irresistible in the way that you want if you want connected, pleasure-centered relationships. I'm Dr. Jordan Wiggins, and I help high-achieving women rebuild their lives after extractive love, divorce, betrayal, or decades of overgiving using the pleasure-centered method. Most women try to fix their relationships. My work is not about fixing or forcing intimacy. It's about rewiring what made you believe depletion was love in the first place. Women like us high achieving women with super traits. We've been called codependent, people pleasers, over functioning. We've been told we are too much, our standards are too high, we have anxious attachment, when in reality, we were never given a relationship framework that worked for us. This podcast gives you language for what you've been living and experiencing and why this one area of your life has felt so hard. We're going to teach you how to build a life and relationships rooted in desire, safety, and power. So if you are a high-functioning woman and enough is enough, you're exhausted from holding it all together, you are in the right place. Maybe you've chosen to stay, but you are ready to stop suffering. Maybe you're preparing to leave with your power intact, or maybe you've already left, but those same patterns keep showing up in new situations with new people. This is where we decode your super traits, name the invisible dynamics that have been draining you, and rewire your nervous system. So love, intimacy, and desire can become nourishing because you don't need better communication. You don't need to work harder at love and connection. You need a pleasure-centered method, a new framework back to yourself, your power, and your erotic aliveness. So my superwomen, do you know your super traits? If not, hit pause, go to the link in the show notes and take my free super trait quiz. It only takes a few minutes, and learning your super traits is going to completely change how you see every relationship in your life. Today I want to talk about responsibility as a super trait and how I've seen this play out in the last 13 years of working with thousands of women. So if responsibility is one of your super traits, it is a quality that has helped you succeed and it has helped you stay safe. In survival terms, it's meant we control people through our competence. You've learned, if I handle it, then I can relax. If I handle it, they'll never leave. But the problem is that we never actually get to relax. Safety, surrender, that real alive, erotic energy is very hard to access for women who have high responsibility as their super trait. So I was chatting with my client and I knew that this didn't start in adulthood for her. And for most of the women that I work with, it starts in childhood. So if we are in a narcissistic family system, or we have emotionally immature parents, maybe a parent with an addiction or a mental health disorder, we become useful. You learn that your value lays in your function, managing emotion, keeping the peace, absorbing the tension, meeting the needs, performing, getting the straight A's because we get praise, and trying not to cause problems. You become the helper, the fixer, the good daughter, the responsible one. Maybe while other siblings act out or while your parent supports the other under-functioning parent. But you learn this role of peacekeeper through responsibility. You soothe your parents' emotions, maybe the emotions of a sibling that had challenges. You mediated between family members. You took care of your younger or older siblings sometimes. Most of my clients are the eldest child like me or the eldest daughter. So you became parentified at a young age, forced into a role that should have been your parents' responsibility. As Dr. McBride writes, children learn to become the caretaker of their parents' emotional needs, often sacrificing their own developmental needs in the process. The role reversal is a form of emotional abuse that creates a lasting pattern of self-abandonment. Maybe you were praised for being mature for your age, so helpful, And that praise felt like love. It's why so many of us have a praise kink as we get older. But this is the kicker that my clients usually cry when they understand. This love wasn't for you. The love was for what you did. You were valuable for your utility, not not your person, not who you were, not just because you existed. And from that moment, a devastating internal belief, internal equation was born. Love equals self sacrifice. Care equals invisibility, self erasing. Connection equals abandoning myself. So, as an adult, you take responsibility for others' emotions. When someone is upset, you automatically assume that you caused it and you have to fix it. I'm personally feeling so called out right now. You feel responsible for keeping everyone else happy, comfortable. The idea that others are responsible for their own emotional states is foreign to you. Okay, this took me years to understand and put together, and I want to make it so clear for you right now. And people with high responsibility, they're often supporting underfunctioning partners, right? Because that was their childhood. And then fast forward to adulthood, they're supporting underfunctioning partners. They're supporting partners with addiction. They have a ton of emotional management to do. Like they walk on eggshells for their partner's feelings. And it's just become so normal and so ingrained that they don't even see it. But it's like, this is no wonder why we have lost connection. We don't feel met. We're erotically mismatched in our relationship. The cost of this survival strategy, okay, the self abandonment, being so responsible as a means to get love, the cost of this survival strategy is so profound. You learned that your feelings don't matter. When you were upset, you were scared, you were hurt, your emotions were dismissed, turned around to make you comfort your parent instead, or your sibling instead, or your husband instead. Eventually, you learned to not have feelings at all, or at least not acknowledge them, to disconnect from them. This is one of the biggest gifts that I teach my clients is how to feel your feelings again. So you completely lose your sense of self. Your identity merges with others' needs. And I'll ask my clients, and when we're working to give them a framework to rewrite their relational script, but I'll ask them, who were you separate from what you provided? Okay. The question itself feels unsafe. So if you stopped providing, you stopped overgiving to your children, to your husband, to your career, it feels unsafe. It feels like it's all going to fall apart. And this is from our trauma. Okay. So the cost is we become chronically exhausted, constant emotional labor, hypervigilance, walking on eggshells is depleting. It is extractive. This is why I have created an extractive love audit. Because let's get some clarity here for why you're feeling the way you're feeling and why it is so hard. And my guess is if you have high responsibility, if you have super traits, you are in an extractive relationship. And this is not a judgment. This should be relief. It should be, oh, thank goodness, I get it. It's not me. It is us, but we are not broken or fundamentally flawed. We've developed these skills, these tools, these strategies to help try and keep us safe, but they take us further away from the intimacy and connection that we want. So the constant emotional labor, the constant hypervigilance are depleting. Perfectionism, responsibility becomes a shield because being just good enough didn't feel safe enough. We had to be the best. So in your adult life, you attracted relationships that recreate the same pattern. You find yourself drawn to people that need you. narcissists, emotionally unavailable partners, partners with addiction, mental health issues, those who take more than they give. And not all is lost. I can imagine hearing this, before I was ready to, and the spiral that it would have sent me in. But I would have known it was true. My pussy would have known it was true. And the fascinating part is that when we learn the pleasure centered method of how to relate, that that is how you shift out of extractive love. But we need to see the truth, see it for what it is. And when extraction feels like love and overgiving feels like love and having people that need us that feel like love. And this, my clients who they spiral when their kids leave, when their kids are off to school and they're empty nesters, right? When the people that need us go away, then it's like, who are we? Because our identity is about what we give. This is why responsibility feels automatic. It's not a choice, it's a reflex. Your body has learned it as a safety, as a coping mechanism. Okay, but the same pattern that protected you is now preventing you from being met. So, how this is rewarded in childhood, teachers, coaches, in adulthood, bosses, partners, board members, everyone praises you for your reliability. You're needed because you can be counted on. It also means your plate gets overloaded a lot, but you internalized love equals being useful. How this collapses intimacy. Desire needs polarity. And I almost hate using this word anymore because the manosphere and relationship talk have influenced how people see this word, right? It's sort of been commoditized. When I talk about it from Chinese medicine and, yin and yang, and how one can't exist without the other, and how energy is flowing or should be flowing. If it's stagnant, it creates disease. So desire needs polarity. Energy needs somewhere to move, a space to cross. So mystery, dominance and surrender, unpredictability, time apart. But responsibility has us managing others' emotions, planning, outcome control. You cannot plan your way into pleasure in intimacy. You can't spreadsheet your way into surrender. So I want to talk about my client, super successful interior design business in California, living in her dream home. She plans everything, thinks 10 steps ahead, is doing extra for her kids so they don't feel uncomfortable, walks on eggshells around her husband, who she's retired. And she called, and when she got on her call with me, she said, I'm standing there in my dream home, chopping, like prepping dinner and getting things ready for lunches the next day. And I looked, and my husband was in the pool playing with the kids. So she's the default parent, kind of the disciplinarian. Her husband golfs a lot and has a lot of fun. And I had her do the extractive relationship audit, and she was pissed, but she was relieved in a way to see what had happened and why she felt the way that she felt, because she finally had an understanding and language to explain it. Because she didn't want to be the responsible one, the default parent, while he was the fun dad. So she's crusty. She has zero desire whatsoever. I think her husband even had an affair. So she craves connection, but she defaults to responsibility, kids, career, emotion management. And she can't even rest because that feels irresponsible for her. Her nervous system only knows hypervigilance. It doesn't know receiving. It doesn't know how to relate to others in a way that isn't overly responsible. So if you are the woman planning the vacations, the date nights, the therapy appointments, and your partner just shows up. The one who keeps the emotional books balanced so that everyone is happy, like you do the emotional management of the household. The one who can't enjoy life and sex because you're too responsible. You're running the logistics of all the things that need to get done. And it's hard to ask for help and support because you don't even know what your needs are. I want to give you some reflection questions and next steps. But before I do that, I want to ask if this is you and you feel so seen, called out, a little uncomfortable, and you want to work with me privately because enough is enough. You need a framework for how to do this differently because even the thought of holding other people accountable, having your own feelings feels unsafe. Then I have 2 spots open for my private coaching. We're going to work together for 8 weeks. I'm going to give you a framework for designing the relationship of your dreams because you don't have that example. You don't know what it looks like and feels like, especially if this episode speaks to you. So you're going to have that framework, and then I'm going to give you tools, nervous system regulation tools, repair tools, detachment tools, all the tools that you need to get you feeling safe in your body so that you can create that relationship of your dreams. This is whether you're dating, whether you're in a partnership that you're not sure is going to work. But if you want to stop being the responsible one, you want to stop parenting your partner and your friends and actually have connection and closeness. If you want to stop mistaking usefulness for love and learn to be loved for who you are, you need the tools and the skills to know what it feels like to receive. And that is what I teach in my private coaching. So head to the show notes and apply. We'll see if it's a fit for you. Maybe a 1-day intensive is. Anyways, fill out the application. We're going to get on a call, decide where you're at and what the next right step is. And so reflection questions and next steps. First of all, have you taken the Super Trait quiz? If not, go to the show notes and do it now. I would like you to think about, where did you learn that being needed was safer than being nurtured, being loved for who you are? It's probably multiple places. How often do you feel the need to fix before you feel the right to receive? So if you go to your partner or an employee or something with an issue that they did, that they created, and it was hard for you to even work up the courage, right? Because you're responsible and you self-abandoned decades ago. So it becomes about fixing them, about making them comfortable, and then maybe we'll deal with your problem. Who benefits from you being this responsible? What would happen if you stopped? Okay. And the funny thing is that I can put myself in that place of where I was then, thinking if I stopped over functioning, I'll be alone. If you have sheer panic of thinking, what if I stop overgiving? You don't have relationships. You have responsibility. And if you want to learn how to do it another way, head to the show notes and apply to work with me privately.